What's up, everybody? My name is David, aka the Jaggernaut, and today we are taking a look at Justice League Task Force on the Sega Genesis. This game also came out on Super Nintendo. It was developed by Sunsoft, published by Acclaim, co-developed by Blizzard, and today we are looking at the Sega Genesis version of the game, captured off of original hardware using my physical copy of the game itself. Let's go ahead and dive in. But first, if you like this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like, and comment, all that good stuff. Just as the game's cover art implies, we got Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Aquaman, and Green Arrow to pick from. I first started out with Wonder Woman because, obviously, the premise of the game is that Darkseid is attacking Earth. He wants to enslave everyone, do evil guy stuff, and you need to band together with the rest of the Justice League to fight back and win back control of the planet, get rid of Darkseid, and do hero things. So you start out by going to search for the rest of your Justice League partners, and oh no, they're attacking me, they're evil now. That's basically the premise of the game. Spoiler alert, if you care about the story, once you get to the end you realize they're all clones, they're not the actual heroes themselves. So you fight through the cast of characters, and then you fight some enemy characters like Cheetah, and then you fight a clone of yourself, and then you finally get to take on Darkseid at the end of the game. That's basically how it goes in the hero mode. You can also play, obviously, 2-player, 1-player, and 2-player. You can play against CPU and stage your fights however you want. It's basic, 1v1 fighting game. It's about what you expect from the era. And overall, I don't think it is as bad as its reputation says it is. You can see in the gameplay here, it's pretty standard stuff. You've got plenty of punches and kicks. You've got different special attacks you can initiate. Most of them are the same button prompts, regardless of the character you pick. Quarter, circle, forward, back, push different buttons. You can do some throws and things like that. It's overall, pretty standard stuff. It's got kind of a floaty feel to it, sort of like Street Fighter 2, but it's also got the large characters and, really detailed sprites and things similar to Eternal Champions. And I really, really do like the visual style here. I think it's full of color, as you can see. I think the backgrounds look really, really nice. The sprites are very well animated, but they're a little choppy. I feel like they're missing some frames, and I think that might be due to the fact that there is so much detail and color. They weren't able to have as many frames for animations as they would have liked. I'm just speculating, but that's the vibe that I get. And the CPU is actually really hard. I'm playing on easy here, and Green Arrow is giving me trouble. It took me a while to really get the hang of the game and be able to get all the way through the actual hero mode, even on easy. I eventually settled on playing as some other characters, so let's take a look at that gameplay. This is an interesting game because it released in 1995, so it released in an era where Street Fighter 2 had already been out for a while. Eternal Champions, Mortal Kombat, all these games were already on the scene and dominating, the attention of fighting game fans. And then you also already had things like the Sega Saturn and PS1, they were already out in a lot of territories. And so people had sort of moved on from the 16-bit fighter genre. They had moved on from this type of game in a lot of ways. And so it released in a field where there wasn't really much place for it. I think, you look at the rest of the games that they had out there for DC, most of them were like side-scrolling beat-em-ups like The Death and Return of Superman. You had your Batman games and things like that, action platformers. There were some Marvel licensed games like the X-Men fighting games, and you had various Spider-Man games that were very popular. So there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity for DC fans to get their fix in games back in the early and mid 90s. So I think this game did have an audience just based on the IP itself. And as a kid, I did rent this once. I remember renting it because I had a friend coming over that weekend and we needed a game to play, and we'd already played all the stuff that I had, so we decided to pick this one because it was a 1v1 fighting game, so there was going to be something for us to both play and do. And it was a good time. As a kid I had fun. You don't really care as much whenever you're a kid playing games like this, and so I definitely enjoyed myself, going into this game as a kid. And playing it now as an adult, I can see kind of the deficiencies more. I can kind of feel how unfair the CPU is in a lot of ways and how unfun it makes it sometimes based on, how cheap they can be, and they kind of spam different attacks and things. You can see here, you know, like this fight was pretty close between Flash and Batman. I feel like each of the characters really kind of control the same. There's a lot of similarities in how their moves are mapped out and how the button prompts are. So, you know, regardless of who you pick, it's pretty copy paste in terms of the muscle memory and doing different moves. It's just that a few of them have different quirks. Like, for example, you saw Flash's tornado spin attack, his dash to the other side of the screen. Those are kind of unique abilities. Batman has like a dive kick, as you saw, as well as a dive punch. He can throw a batarang, he can do a slide kick. Superman, you know, has laser eyes, ice breath. He has, you know, he can fly across the screen similar to Flash to punch you. So they have similarities, but then they differ in some different ways. So I would have appreciated a little bit more variety in how the characters play. You know, I would have liked them to feel even more different. I think that there's a little bit of a missed opportunity to really lean into what makes each character unique and different. You know, you look at a game like Mortal Kombat, and those characters are so iconic and unique. They don't really play that similarly. Even if their button inputs are similar for their abilities, their actual powers are very different. You know, the person that plays Scorpion is very different from someone that plays Sub-Zero, who's very different from someone that plays Johnny Cage, etc., etc. This game doesn't really have that identity for the characters, which is unfortunate because the property itself has those identities, but the gameplay doesn't lend itself to the characters really feeling very different. And so that's really the biggest complaint I have, other than the kind of choppy animation. But you know, overall it's not bad. You know, visually it looks fantastic. I think it's a solid fighting game. If you like DC Comics, if you like fighting games, you know, consider picking this one up, because you're not going to be able to get it in any re-releases or anything like that. This is a OG hardware only game as far as I'm aware. Like I said, Genesis and Super Nintendo. The Genesis version is regarded better than the SNES version, which is a little surprising. I think the visuals look better, and I heard that Aquaman doesn't even have his trident in the Super Nintendo version. I haven't verified that, but that's what I heard and saw online, which is kind of crazy. That's about all there is to it with Justice League Task Force. Let me know what you thought of this review. Let me know what you think of the game if you played it yourself. Let me know down in the comments. If you have any other suggestions for retro games you'd like for me to review, let me know that as well. I've got a collection of over 700 games. I've got various different systems from Genesis, Super Nintendo, Dreamcast, Saturn, Xbox, GameCube, PS2, PS1, PS3. I've got a lot of different games that I can definitely check out here on the channel. I'd love to do more reviews like this, kind of a casual, you know, unscripted, spitball style content, just talking about the games and playing them, showing footage from original hardware, capturing it myself, you know, all that good stuff, and, you know, really preserving and talking about these games, because like this one in particular, this is a game that not many people talk about or know about, and I really like spotlighting these kind of things. So let me know if there are any particular games that you want me to check out, and if I have them, I'd love to make a video. If I don't, I'll keep an eye out for it whenever I look online or look at different stores. So thank you very much for tuning in. Hope you had a good time and enjoyed the video, and let me know what you think down in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed the content, and I'll see you guys again next time.